Hey guys, here's the gear for today. I'm going to keep on using, for my second time, the Pearl Blaze razor. We're going to put my Nacet in it. 496 is the count for today's shave. And then these two other items are part of a new bulk purchase I made of used products. This is a brush made by Viking, and it has the Odin's beard knot. I don't know anything about that knot other than what I'm going to experience today. It's the name that they call their, I think, their finest badger knot. I don't know whether they're claiming that it's hand-tied or artisan tied, but we will we'll take a look at it. I believe it has a kind of spongy gel, a little bit of gel on the tips, that kind of thing. It seems to be fairly dense. I have heard of it before. I actually received it, but I don't really go for the finest badger knots that are like this usually, because I've got several of that genre already. The handle we'll show you in a minute. It's kind of a messy looking handle, but the more you look at it really closely, it's really nice in terms of the way the colors weave in and out. But from a distance, it just kind of looks like a mess. So I don't know if I'll keep that particular brush or not. But sure will be fun to try the Odin's beard handle. The ergonomics of this handle do look attractive to me. It looks like it's going to be big enough for me to hold on to. The sharp little edge here, relatively sharp, not really sharp. I might appreciate a little more of a curve right there, but I think it'll be a lot of fun to try. Saponificio Varesino is a soap brand that I tell you what, I like so many of their scents. I've got 7 or 8 of them. They're expensive. This is the hard soap. It is relatively expensive. When you compare a container of this soap with a container of like a softer artisan soap, then this is more expensive. However, it's a hard soap. It's going to last a very long time. This could last you twice as long, 2 or 3 times as long as a soap costing less. And so it actually may end up to be a reasonable price if you consider that. Price per shave, how long will it last me? If you have those kind of thoughts, then the price starts to look pretty competitive. And then they have, their scents are just so well thought out. They are so often put together in a complex, creative way, very classy, almost always. Yeah, always very classy. 1945 has a crown there, and so I'm going to bet that may be when the Saponificio Varesino started. Yeah, traditional soap manufactured since 1945, it actually says here. As you can see, this tin has kind of been banged up a little bit. Normally it's a very rounded or a consistently rounded tin. This one has a big old bang spot right here. Well, this is just the weakness of these tins. They don't travel well. And the person who shipped this to me, he didn't realize what would happen. There were a bunch of other soaps in the box, and so what happened is as it was traveling, those heavy soaps that were stacked up next to it, this one was vertical, or at least it ended up to me to be vertical. The soaps that were stacked up against it, as the box was moved around, they pushed against this soap. It wasn't other things that damaged this soap. The heavy plastic soap pucks in the same box kind of crushed this tin as it traveled. And so if you are a recycler kind of person, you are going to like these because, you know, this is not plastic. This can be either recycled or just chucked away and let it rust kind of thing. Pretty sure this is aluminum, right? But the disadvantage is if you take these kind of tins traveling, then you do run the risk of having them get kind of dinged up. All right, Desert Vetiver is the scent for today. And it's one of the newer ones that they came out within the last couple of years. Smells really good, kind of aquatic, kind of that almost like a blue type scent, that Aquavelva blue genre. Which is funny because it's Desert Vetiver, so I'm interested in seeing what else comes out of this scent as we go. Fortunately, the injuries to the tub are not preventing it from closing up. The tin closes. It might not make it as airtight as it once was, but the guy gave me such a great deal that I'm not bothered by the injured tub. If I would have bought it more competitively, then I might have asked for some kind of recompense. But he was very generous. All right. I get my beard wet. And then the question becomes, how long are we going to load? Almost like a pear. Like a blue pear. A blue barber pear. How long are we going to load this? It's a hard soap. It might not have been used for a long time. This is a brush with kind of soft tips, jelly tips. Let's just try 45 seconds. It may be overkill, but let's just try 45 seconds. I'm going to get rid of kind of my usual amount of water, reduce it down to what I might call lightly wet. All right, 45 seconds. Oh, good. We're going to start it at 45. And there we go. So we'll go to 30 seconds on the next minute. Now I can feel the backbone here. I don't know about the typical backbone found in the Odin's beard knot. If it's like this, then it kind of feels firm. We've already got, as you can see, some of the suds coming up there. 20 more seconds. And this may mean that I don't need to load for this long. But we'll play it. Let's go ahead and do for 45 seconds, and then I'm going to know. Now we've got some thicker stuff coming up out of the container. And there we go. I feel very confident that I have a lot of soap loaded up and that we are going to have plenty to do the job. Let's do a little face scrub with the extra here. Now that it's wet, the vetiver is kind of showing up a little bit more. It's noticeable now. Definitely kind of a modern aquatic type scent, maybe. I know I said it kind of smelled like Aquavelva blue, but I think it's not. It's not an old kind of Aquavelva blue. I think kind of a blue aquatic type scent. Why do they call it desert? I don't really know. The tins here do get slippery when they get soapy and wet. So you don't want to drop that in the sink and dent it up again, right? All right, so let's work the lather up. With these really dense knots, sometimes there's not as much room between the bristles, and that can affect loading. I can feel a lot of backbone here. After just a little bit of work, you can see that it's not pasty, but kind of dry. But it is pretty quickly turning into something that looks like a dry lather. So I'm going to go ahead and add some water to it. So the brush yesterday was a dense brush. It wasn't ultra high density, you know, but that was the High Mountain White from Kai Yuan. This one is more dense, and I can feel the backbone because of that. If you're new to this kind of shaving, this kind of brush has come around and been around for a little while. It's a two-band brush because you have the band of light or almost white tips. Then you have a dark band that goes almost all the way to the handle. Sometimes you'll have another light band, but often that will be obscured. If you see plenty of white, then that's often a three-band knot. The breed of the badger, where the hair is clipped from the badger, all come into play to determine what kind of hair we're talking about. Does this one have a version number? Where'd that lid go? Beta 4.3. This is their Beta 4.3 formulation. A nice thing about this handle is it is keeping my fingers fairly away from the suds. Do enjoy that. This kind of firm ridge right here on the end is kind of digging into me a little bit, but you know, I guess if I were to use this brush for a long time, I would get used to it. But back what I was saying about this, the two-band knots. Finest badger is another way of talking about those usually. They have backbone. The silver tips, the three-band knots, don't usually have very much backbone. People think maybe they're a little too floppy, but the finest have a pretty good backbone. And so people started shaving with those. But the problem is, those, along with that backbone, came kind of stiff tips. Silver tips kind of had floppy and less backbone, more of a plush experience, but nice soft tips. These guys had more firm tips. And however, if you were to use it for years and years, it would gel the tips. The tips would gradually become softer. And guys figured out that by bleaching or applying a similar type agent to the tips of these, you could kind of artificially age those tips. And that's kind of the industry we've had for a while now. People doing that. Now, I don't know if the Odin's Beard knot here is just a Umo knot, you know, some other knot company from China. If it's one that we've kind of experienced, you know, in some other brushes, or if they're picking their hairs and doing all that themselves. I don't know what they're doing there. But all of the high density knots, they're all hand tied. It's kind of funny. The word hand tied people are using when they're talking about declaration knots. And the declaration was really one of the first kind of artisan hand-tied knots that were out there. And it was just a class above the rest. And then a bunch of people have now gotten together to do that as well. Like Viking here, Maggard reached out to Umo and got some of their knots that were the high density, and they're tied as well. They are hand-tied also. So basically, all these ultra high density knots are hand tied. There's not a machine that does it. They're hand tied by somebody. Are they hand tied by an artisan like Scott at Declaration Grooming? Or are they hand tied by a room of people over in China and then sent over here as already finished knots? So, you know, that's kind of one of the questions. All right, splash a little bit of water on my face. And we'll get to lathering up. I definitely am enjoying the scent. But honestly, this almost feels like, I mean, I'm not really, This feels like another soap, like a Puntia or something like that. It doesn't smell Desert Vetiver or anything like that. I might have to contact the guy who I bought it from and see if there's a chance he may have flip-flopped the lid. I could be just imagining things, but yeah, it might be worth an ask. Well, what can happen sometimes is that you get a good slick lather on one of these brushes and the tips absorb the motion and action, and you don't actually end up needing to splay the brush very much. This needs some more water. And so even though the brush is really dense, even though the shafts of the bristles are not very flexible comparatively, if the tips just spread out into this big wall, this big umbrella, and sometimes you can end up not really needing to splay the brush. Now let's say I want to splay. Let me really get in there. You know what? Yeah, it's fine. This is an enjoyable knot to use. I like that. I did not see that coming because of the firmness that I felt when I had the lather in the bowl and I was working it up. Did not see that coming. Well, one thing I did see coming is this terrific creamy lather. SV does a great job with that. Such good stuff. With these dense brushes, you kind of have to do some kind of rolling motion to circulate the lather through your brush, because the center will empty on you. This could still use some more water. But let's just go ahead and go with that. It's late. I've got things to do. I will, however, go ahead and add some more water to the bowl there. Mix it up after the first pass here. All right, let's put the Nacet. I have no idea how well the Nacet is going to do in the blaze. This is basically a DE89 style head. It performed similarly to what I remember the DE89. It's just such a common head. Let's see what happens when I put my old blade in it with a billion uses. There's the identifying marks. I'm not going to use the plastic spacer. The replacement that Maggard sent me, because I told him that the head was crooked on here, had the same crooked head. It seems to be maybe a known issue, and so I wouldn't be surprised if I could contact Pearl and they would send me out a correct head. I'm going to do that. I wouldn't be surprised. I've been very happy with the customer service from Pearl. All right. Of course, if the razor does not like the Nacet, if I end up not getting a close shave, I'm definitely not going to blame the razor. Most guys are not going to call their razor up to work with a blade that's almost 500 uses old. So it's really one of those things where, hey, if it works well, Now look at this. If you shave with a DE razor and it looks like this on your razor, see how it's taken its shape, it's not really moving, it's not drooping, it's not sliding, then you could add more water if you want to. If you want to see if you can get it more slick, then you could do that. All right. I need to do a good run of the SV soaps. Give them a real shakedown with their lather. Rinse now. And now I'm going to take time to work that water in that I added after the first, during the first pass. This does not smell like Desert Vetiver. It smells like something else. I've got Opuntia, and that's the one that it's kind of making me think of, an aquatic. But I'll read the description. But I mean, it says vetiver in the title, right? And I'm not smelling anything like vetiver. Brush feels very good. The tips do not, in this one, are not jelly very much. They're just soft. They're just very soft. In this bulk purchase that I've made, there was another brush with the Odin's Beard knot, but it has a lower loft, meaning from the top of the handle to the brush tips. That's the loft. And so with more loft, you get more ability to kind of sway and move, easier display. With less loft, you get more firmness, more backbone, that sort of thing. And so when you're making your own, you have your own handle, you have your own brush knot, you bought them from two separate places, and you're gluing them up, you can change the behavior of your brush quite a bit by changing how you loft the brush, the knot inside the brush. Do you put spacers in there or not? I do have a handy little brush video about how to set your brush knot. If you guys ever want to do that, it's super easy. And see, look, I still could put more water in here. This is just a thirsty, awesome soap. That is the danger of overloading, of loading for too long, is because then it takes quite a bit to hydrate the soap properly. Some people say load it like you hate it and that sort of thing. Well, if you like your lather as wet as I do, then if you load it like you hate it, you load it too much, then man, you're spending a long time putting water into it to get it to where it's the kind of wet slickness that you like. Still felt plenty of stubble, so this head is definitely not a miracle worker with the Nacet. But at this stage, not many are. This does not feel slick. Feels kind of pasty. This lather needs more water. And now a splash of water on my face. If you decide that your lather might be a little too wet for too dry, if it's just a little too dry, you can just leave a little bit extra water on your face before you do your pass. Sometimes that's an easy fix. Did not need to load for 45 seconds. Should have looked at that, the way the lather was coming up out of the soap. Once it switched from that bubbly stuff to something more resembling a lather, I should have known to stop. This is an enjoyable brush to use. I do wish the handle were more comfortable. But it really looks like the Odin's Beard Knot is a good one. If you like softness, if you like backbone, but then this one's so dense that, like I said, I'm not really having to use the backbone too much. It's not shoving me around. All right. Pass number 3. There we go. Added more water, and that is feeling more slick. Like I said, I'm going to, just the other day, I'm going to use this on its 500th time as a live shave, but I'm going to give you notice, and so I'll switch to another blade once I get to 499. So I can make arrangements and make sure that I can be online and give you guys notice for those of you who might want to show up. Be neat if some of you guys have been with me on this journey for a long time, like Linus. Peter Cook's been with me for a while. Buzz chimes in often. Talega, Hakime, all you guys have been with me for a while. So that's 3 passes, and I definitely have, I don't have a close shave yet. And so it's possible that this razor is just not a good wielder of this old blade, and like I said, that's fine. Not going to hold anything against the razor. The shave I got yesterday with this razor was pretty nice. It wasn't super smooth because of the kind of the lack of support from the bottom edge, would be my guess. And that's just typical of the DE89 design. But other than that, it was efficient. It was reasonably comfortable. The kind of tenuousness that was left on my face, it's got a little more audio chatter. All that disappeared before the shave was even done before the balm was even put on, that sort of thing. So it is a razor I could use every day if I wanted to. Now Greg, another viewer that's been with me not a super long time, but lately, we interact a lot online. He said that he believes I'll be able to keep using this Nacet for a long time. His theory is, and he knows a lot about blade edges, he said that in other industry like knives and things like that, he says that because these DE blades here are so thin that this thing doesn't even really need a sharp edge to be able to shave somebody. And so I could have this thing rounded off to a corner and still be able to get the shave done. I'm curious if he's right or not. My guess would be no, but that's just a kind of educated guess. If he's putting forth a guess, from what I know of his study of edges and things like that, I think he's making a more educated guess than me. But maybe we'll see someday. We'll do another pass. I'm enjoying the scent. Let's do another pass. Yeah, this is not really cutting closely. So we'll just be leaving a little stubble for tomorrow. A little bit, not much. Still very presentable. If this was the last razor I had, I would have to quit using the Nacet, or at least flip it over to the other side. At least I was able to get the lather to a nice wet place. very hydrated. See that moving a little bit? You can just use that as kind of touch-up lather. Throw it down. Just kind of keep going. Kind of for fun if you want. And that'll just do for today, I think. We had tons of lather. I've still got 3 passes left in the bowl. So with that 45-second load, I have used up about 23 milliliters of water, and honestly, probably should have used 30 or more. Because those first couple of passes were quite relatively dry. Let's look at this soap, the lather now. And I've got just a good bit of it still. And look at that nice elasticity there. And I think this is the kind of lather that I like with this soap base. Not quite as fluid as a tallow soap. I'm pretty sure this is not a tallow soap. I don't think SV does tallow, but they do a really good vegan soap. And I think this is pretty much finally at the end here, the last pass or two, I did get the lather really where I like it, and nice performance. So we'll do some cleaning. Kind of a little disappointed because I just would bet the farm that this is not Desert Vetiver. It smells neither deserty nor vetiver-y. I might have to pause the camera here and run in and look at my computer, read the description. Yeah, I went and took a look, and I just am going to bet the farm that this is not actually Desert Vetiver. The description for DV on their site has notes like pepper, incense, cloves, spicy. In a few different ways it talks about these things, and that's just not this at all. And so while this is the cover, the lid for Desert Vetiver, I looked, this also could be 70th anniversary. It had some of those similar kind of notes, and so either Apuntia or 70th anniversary is my guess as to what this is. I'm gonna have to contact the guy who I got it from recently and see if maybe he could have transposed the lids, something like that. All right, well, that's a little disappointing because I've been looking for the Desert Vetiver and the Cubebe to get as shaving soaps. But at least I learned just now on the website that as I shake up Noble Otter Flying Hide, I found on their website they have another one called Murano or something, and it is a woody kind of manly type scent, and so I might have to add that to my list. So we're going to take this aquatic citrusy kind of scent and put some leather and stuff like that into it. And I think I'll be very glad I chose the Flying Hide. This is kind of a rare one. This is the first version that they did, and then they even had to stop doing the second there's no more Flying Hide, I understand. Some guys out there really chase it down and try to find it. So I will, yeah, it's a little disappointing about the soap, but hey, that's the way it goes sometimes. I don't regret at all the used market and talking with people and buying stuff used. I just have been way more blessed with positive experiences from that than I have negative ones. So that is the 496th shave with the Nacet. I got a reasonably close shave